Hello, the exiled Russian businessman and prominent critic of the Kremlin, Boris Berezovsky, has been found dead at his home near London. He was 67. He'd been living here in the UK for several years after being granted political asylum. British police have launched an investigation and the area around the property has been cordoned off. Nick Childs reports.
This is when Boris Berezovsky was last in the spotlight last August. He'd just spectacularly lost his huge, high-profile court battle with another Russian oligarch, Roman Abramovich.
I am absolutely amazed what happened today. I surprised completely. Sometimes I had the impression that Putin himself wrote this judgment. Sometimes I had this impression.
This is the man to whom he was referring, Russian President Vladimir Putin, who'd become in many ways his nemesis. The political influence he'd previously enjoyed under President Boris Yeltsin evaporated when Mr. Putin took over. Boris Berezovsky was trained as a mathematician. He made his fortune with the breakup of the Soviet Union, first importing and selling cars, then in oil and the media. But he fled to London in 2000 after his falling out with Mr. Putin. He remained one of his most trenchant opponents and critics. When he lost his legal battle with Roman Abramovich last year, that only added to his troubles. Mr. Berezovsky regarded Roman Abramovich as a protégé before they turned into bitter rivals, but the British court utterly threw out his claim he'd been forced to give up billions. Colourful and controversial, his private jets and lifestyle lived up to the image of an oligarch, but there were growing rumours that his wealth had dwindled away. The court loss only added to reports that his fortune had turned into a growing mountain of debt. Nick Childs, BBC News.
Famil Ismailov from the BBC's Russian service has been near Mr. Berezovsky's home in southern England. He says news of Mr. Berezovsky's death will close an entire chapter in modern Russian history.
What we know at the moment is that London ambulance received a phone call from a caller at an address in Ascot at just after 3 p.m. and they sent officers to the scene and found a deceased man of 67-year-old. Mr. Berezovsky hasn't been formally identified, but we understand that he died at the property in Ascot, just behind the police cordon behind me.
So police now starting their investigation. Of course, since the news broke, so much speculation about Mr. Berezovsky and how he might have died. He had had threats to his life. He had many enemies, but it's all speculation.
Well, his death at the moment is sort of formally written as unexplained. But since afternoon, actually, London time, we already had lots of speculation in Russian media, social media networks, and Facebook and Twitter was awash with news of Boris Berezovsky's death with reference to his son-in-law's posting in Facebook. And at the moment, the main question will be asked everywhere. As you know, in Russian social media, conspiracy theories usually are quite popular, and the questions will be asked as for the reasons of his death.
Yeah, and as for his reputation in recent years, of course, Mr. Berezovsky lived in the UK. How much was he talked about in Russia? Well, I mean, lately his name was in the news, mostly connected and linked to this big courtroom dramas, and the new words that came to the English law dictionary, such as krisha, which means when somebody is covering someone's business and controlling it. And Mr. Berezovsky recently was sort of less seen in the news stories in Russian media, but since from now on there will be, at least for a while, lots and lots of comments, and because with his departure the whole era in modern Russian history probably is closed. Well, there hasn't been an official government reaction from Moscow, but President Putin's spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, did make a statement on Russian TV.
Some time ago, maybe a few months ago, Boris Berezovsky passed a letter to President Putin, which he personally wrote. In it, he admitted that he had made a lot of mistakes. He asked Putin's forgiveness for these mistakes, and he also asked if he could have an opportunity to return to his homeland.
And we'll be getting more from Moscow a little later in this programme.